Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a great honour to rise in this House today for my first speech as an elected Member of Parliament for Souris Moose Mountain. I want to share a few reflections of where I came from, who I serve, and the responsibilities we all carry as members of this chamber. I'm deeply humbled to represent a region that's rooted in hard work, resilience, and unshakable community spirit. First and foremost, I want to thank the people of my riding. I'm here because of you. You've entrusted me to be your voice in this chamber, and I will work every day to be worthy of that trust. I also want to acknowledge those who came before me. Ed Komarnicki and Robert Kitchen served this region with integrity, thoughtfulness, and strength of conviction. Hear, hear. Their example has set a high bar. Mr. Speaker, I would not be here today without the support of my family. My wife Candace is my greatest partner and source of strength. Through every challenge, every sacrifice, and every long stretch of road, she remained unwavering in her support and grace. Her belief in me never faltered, and I'm endlessly grateful for her love, insight, and patience. My daughter Emma reminds me daily of what truly matters. She is thoughtful, courageous, and wise beyond years. Her quiet encouragement has been one of the most steadying forces in my journey thus far. I'm also grateful to my parents, who taught me not only to work hard, but to work with purpose. They instilled in me the importance of character, integrity, and perseverance. The examples they set are my guiding light. I'm also thankful to the many volunteers whose dedication and sacrifice helped make this journey possible. Their belief in our cause and their tireless efforts are a humbling reminder that public service is never done alone. I was humbled to receive the highest percentage of the vote of any candidate in Canada during this election. But let me be clear. Well done. But let me be clear, this is not about me. It's a testament to the people of Souris Moose Mountain and their belief in our message that's rooted in principle, a respect for hard work, for resource development, for freedom, and for limited but accountable government. I grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan where you learned early that complaining doesn't get you very far. If something's broken, you fix it. If something matters, you stand up and you speak out. Life on the land teaches you patience, persistence, and humility. It also teaches you that when you make a promise, you keep it, because your word is often the only thing you have. Those lessons have never left me. I remember as a teenager, when a federal issue was affecting cattle prices, my father said to me, if it matters enough to talk about, it matters enough to do something about. So I wrote a letter to our MP. That simple act of engagement was the first step in me realizing that democracy only works when people participate. It taught me that government, at its best, should be accessible and responsive, not distant and dismissive. Years later, I had the opportunity to live and work in post-Soviet Eastern Europe, nearly a decade immersed in countries still navigating the aftermath of authoritarian rule. I was involved in international trade and economic development, working with businesses and governments as they sought to rebuild their economies and reestablish democratic norms after generations of state control. What I witnessed was both inspiring and sobering. In many of these countries, privacy had once been non-existent. Information was power, and that power had too often been abused. Surveillance was used to silence dissent. Trust in public institutions had been deeply damaged, and though democracy had arrived, scars of its absence lingered. In some places, people were still afraid to speak freely, still hesitant to believe that change was permanent. It was there, in conversations with small business owners, young reformers, and cautious civil servants, that I saw the true cost of lost public trust. Once trust is broken, it takes generations to rebuild. When I returned to Canada, I brought those lessons home with me, into my business, my community, and eventually into public service. I later had the honor of serving as a cabinet minister in Saskatchewan's provincial government, where I was responsible for portfolios on economy, trade, and innovation. That experience deepened my belief that when government works well, it creates opportunity, not barriers, for people to grow, contribute, and succeed. That's right. Mr. Speaker, I reflect on all of this when I consider Part 4 of Bill C-4, which addresses the question of how privacy laws apply to federal political parties. At face value, this provision seems narrowly focused. It retroactively asserts the provincial privacy laws do not apply to federal political parties, reinforcing exclusive federal jurisdiction. But beneath this technical language lies a more profound question about the relationship between citizens and their democratic institutions. When Canadians provide their personal information to political parties, whether signing up for a newsletter, attending a town hall, or simply expressing support, they are placing trust in us. They expect that information to be treated with care, confidentiality, and respect. And when that expectation is not met, the harm isn't just legal or administrative, it's democratic. This bill may clarify federal jurisdiction, but it also takes provincial privacy commissioners out of the picture. These offices have built strong, effective systems to address complaints and hold organizations accountable. By removing that layer of oversight, we risk weakening the transparency and trust that Canadians expect and deserve. There's also the risk of reinforcing cynicism. When people see legislation rush through Parliament, particularly as part of a broader omnibus bill, they may feel that their concerns are being managed, not addressed. And when they discover that their personal data, collected for political purposes, exists outside the scrutiny applied to most other private entities in Canada, it raises a troubling double standard. We should ask ourselves, what example are we setting as federal, provincial, or political actors? If we expect businesses, charities, and provincial governments to uphold privacy rights, should we not hold ourselves to at least that same standard? I believe we can do better. Rather than simply assert jurisdiction, we should be using this moment to create a clear, principled, and enforceable privacy framework tailored to the political context, one that respects constitutional boundaries but does not sacrifice accountability. Canadians should not be asked to choose between federal clarity and democratic transparency. They deserve both. This is a real opportunity here to lead by example. We as federal lawmakers can take a proactive approach. We can establish minimum privacy standards for political parties, standards that ensure Canadians know exactly how their data is collected, stored, and used, so that the publication of a privacy policy becomes more than a symbolic checkbox. We must restore trust, credibility, and strengthen our democracy from within. And while this legislation does address the jurisdictional gap, it should not be mistaken for a comprehensive solution. The real solution lies in demonstrating that political parties are willing to play by the same rules as everyone else, that we are not seeking exemption, but embracing transparency. This is our chance to get it right. Not just for today, but for the next generation of voters, many of whom are already deeply skeptical of political institutions. Let's give them a reason to believe that we are listening, and that we're willing to hold ourselves to the same standards we expect of others, one that respects constitutional boundaries but does not sacrifice accountability. Canadians should not be forced to choose between federal clarity and democratic transparency. They deserve it both. This is why, as we debate legislation like this, we must ask not just whether it meets constitutional muster, but whether it strengthens public trust, whether it improves how we serve, whether it brings citizens closer to the institutions that represent them. Mr. Speaker, I saw in Eastern Europe what happens when governments stop listening, when citizens lose faith in the institutions that are meant to serve them. And I can say without hesitation, rebuilding trust is far harder than maintaining it. Canadians deserve transparency, they deserve clarity, and they deserve to know that the people they elect are subject to rules, not above them. I did not come to Ottawa seeking applause. I came here to do the work, to advocate for those who feel unheard, to push for common sense in public policy, and to serve with humility. The people of Souris Moose Mountain are not looking for platitudes. They're looking for leadership that understands the value of work and the weight of their worries. They deserve to know that their privacy, their voices, and their values matter. So as I rise for my first speech in this House, I do so not as a politician, but as a proud Canadian, shaped by my prairie roots, informed by global experience, and guided by the belief that government exists to serve, not to control. And I'll return again to that image of myself as a teenager, writing that first letter, guided by my father's words. If something matters enough to complain about, it matters enough to do something about it. Mr. Speaker, I intend to do something about it, not just today, but every day that I have the honor to serve in this House.
Well done.
Wow. Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. L'honorable député de Sudbury.
The honourable member for Sudbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate the MP on their first address in the House. I have to tell you that both my parents and grandparents grew up on farms, proud farmers, and I too have similar values that you stated, and my father repeated to me often that your word is everything. As it relates to C4, We are offering a tax break for young families trying to buy their first homes, and I'm wondering if that member supports that move in helping those young families attain their first home.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As Conservatives, we always support every tax cut. But in typical Liberal fashion, it's too little, and they say one thing, they do another. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives wanted to give a tax break to all people buying their home, not just first home buyers. But if the members opposite want to steal Conservative ideas when it comes to affordability, please, by all means, take our ideas.
Well done.
Questions et commentaires. L'honourable député.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, I hear the Conservatives talk about abolishing the carbon tax. I hear them speak about pipelines, about increasing oil and gas production, removing emissions caps. I want to know the following. Do the Conservatives want us to remove all measures to reduce greenhouse gases? Do they want to eliminate all of the fight against climate change?
For Souris Moose Mountain.
Oh, I'm very happy for that question, Mr. Speaker. I've had the privilege of traveling and working on 4 continents, and I can tell you, I've been to other places that produce energy across the world. One thing I know, that if other jurisdictions in the world adopted the same environmental policies that we have in Saskatchewan, for example, there would be a reduction of 25% in the greenhouse gases globally. Canada is a world leader. We should be proud of what we're doing. Our industry should be praised, not vilified.
That's right. Questions and comments. The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And what a pleasure it is to stand up and hear this speech from my colleague for Souris Moose Mountain. Of course, both of our constituencies are named after the proud Souris River that flows from his constituency in the west into mine in the east. And it's a pleasure to have him as a neighbor. As a neighbor, we both have the same economies in our region. And I would like the member for Souris Moose Mountain to highlight just a little bit more how terrible the Liberal government's policies over the last 10 years have been for affordability in our region, how they've suppressed our fertilizer industry, our natural resources industry, and the ag sector with their disastrous policies that have resulted in tariffs on canola and the pulse crops from India, and what a disaster that has been for affordability measures in Souris Moose Mountain and Brandon Souris.
The honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain.
I'd like to thank my colleague for that question because it highlights the fact that in our regions, agriculture makes up a large part of our GDP. And as we know, most agriculture commodities are priced globally on the global market. And just south of both of our constituencies is the United States. They also share the same region as us. They produce the same crops, they have the same industries, but they're not paying a carbon tax. We have about a 40% higher rate or cost of production than my neighbors do in the States. This is a self-imposed harm that the Liberal government has put on the people in my constituency for the past 10 years. It was a carbon tax that we never asked for, didn't want, and didn't work. And I'm so happy that they've removed it. The next thing they should do is take it off the industrial carbon tax, because that affects all of our inputs, all of our crop supplies, and it's something that really hurts our industries.
Well done.
Questions and comments. I see the member for Sandwich Gulf Islands for a brief question.
Thank you, and I really want to congratulate the honourable member for Souris Moose Mountain, and he's raised something that I've been concerned about, which is what the heck does Part 4 of this bill have to do with affordability, change it to the Elections Act, and I just wanted to know if he has any comment on another section that he may, I'm sure he noticed it, but section 49, which we can call the time machine section, that says this bill comes into force in terms of the sections around the privacy of election information, comes into force 25 years ago. So does he have any comment on that?
You know, member for Souris Moose Mountain, a brief answer.
I haven't read the Act in enough detail. I've just got it yesterday, so that I haven't had a chance to really go over the fine detail of it. But one thing I can say is anytime you are dealing with people's private information, it's very important that we take privacy concerns extremely seriously. I've seen what happens when governments don't.